Okay, so looks like I'm live. I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see. But anyway, welcome to the Liberty Bowl live stream. This is my first ever live stream. I mean, of course, there's nobody here right now, so I'm essentially talking to myself. But today we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff going on with the kids, transgendered youth, that type stuff. Um, yeah, we're mainly going to be talking about kids, school, culture, all that type of shit today. But I don't know. For the most part, like I said, this is my first ever live stream, so I'm really just kind of testing out the equipment. As you guys can see, I just got a new microphone. Um, I also just got a brand new monitor randomly sent to me in the mail uh, through Amazon. I guess they got my order wrong. I ordered like a $30 item. They sent me a fucking $300 monitor. So I guess that's a win in my book. In my opinion. All right. So anyway, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, nobody's really here yet, so we'll kind of put off smoking. I don't even know if anybody's gonna actually even watch this. Mainly just kind of you know, let's see. Oh, what did they happen? Okay. I'm yeah, mainly like I said, just kind of testing out the hardware, practicing going live and stuff like that. All right, so the first article that we're going to be talking about today is going to be, let's see. All right, so Brian Kemp signs bill banning some gender affirming care for transgender youth. All right, so Georgia Governor Brian Kemp announced on Thursday that he signed a bill banning certain gender affirming care for minors in the state. All right, so this, normally I'm very much against the whole idea of government intervention, stuff like that. It's a slippery slope type thing, but in this current situation, it seems necessary, right? So overall, the essential role of government is really just to preserve life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? They're not here to make sure that you're having a nice life. They're not really here to make sure that you're having a comfortable life. Essentially, that is your job, right? Your housing, all your expenses, your food, your water, your shelter. That's all on you to provide for yourself. Much as it is in nature, right? There's not any sort of other animal in the world that takes care of other people within the community just for the simple fact of being nice, right? So that's a kind of in a exclusively human trait, right? So yeah, so essentially, oh shit, forgot where I was going with all this, right? But so anyway, back to this whole thing. So uh yeah, the role of government in this situation is essentially to ensure the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, right? So this, when it comes to children, that is the only time that I am really okay with government sort of stepping in and kind of taking the reins and doing something, right? Doing something, that affects essentially people's personal choices, right? I mean, even, of course, I'm very much for parents being able to choose what their kids do and don't do and stuff like that. But at the same time, there's a limit, and there's a difference between a net positive, or what is good, and a overall net negative, or what is bad, right? So essentially, in this case, when you are doing anything that pertains to children are like sponges. They're going to literally soak up everything, because that's literally the way that they learn. That's the way that they build who they are. That's the way that they learn, is by watching other people, right? And essentially, if somebody that they trust and stuff like that, say a teacher or something like that, for example, or even a parent in this types of cases, tells them that oh, you like dolls or something like that, well, maybe you were born in the wrong body. Maybe nature made a mistake with you. Maybe something's wrong with you. Maybe you're a mistake, right? And essentially, that's very, very damaging to a child, because they are going to take what you say to be essentially gospel. They're going to take it, what you say to be the truth, right? And it's going to carry on with them later on down the line, right? So essentially, their personality is based on your perception of shame, all right? So Shame is going to essentially come from two places. You're going to have either retrospective shame or you're going to have prospective shame, right? So retrospective shame is essentially going to be after you've done an act and you feel bad about it. That is essentially retrospective shame. In hindsight, that probably wasn't the best idea, right? That's retrospective shame. Prospective shame is when you see something, when you see a situation, and you see that is probably not a good choice, so I'm not going to do that. Essentially, it's the idea of making good choices, right? So based off of how you react to these two, these are based off of your shame reaction to these, in either direction. That is essentially what builds your personality, or who you would like to design yourself as after, based off of what you see in your immediate social environment, such as your parents. As you get a little bit older, it goes to your teachers, your classmates. Of course, as you get older, then it starts going to different stuff like celebrities and so on. All right. So basically, external social factors are essentially what is going to build up part or all of your personality. All right. Yeah. So essentially, when you start kids out young, there's a whole reason that they go after children, right? And it's essentially because that is the way that they're going to carry on their ideology. That's the way that they're going to carry on their beliefs, their way of life, all that type of shit. Because I mean, obviously, the whole transgender movement and stuff like that, it's obviously headed for a bad place. It's not, you can't make a baby with this. I say it quite often. Same thing as you can't make a baby by putting two holes together. That's not the way that it works. That's not the way that procreation happens, right? So overall, in nature, based off of natural selection, these types of ideas and this way of thinking, and doing these kinds of actions would naturally take care of itself, based on the fact that these people cannot reproduce. Right, especially if they go through the whole surgery and they get on hormones and all that type of stuff at a young age. It's it's going to have devastating consequences going forward into the future. Right, so in this case, that is why I say it is okay for basically government to go ahead and intervene and basically say that even though you may say your child is transgender, or your child was born in the wrong body, or this or that, whatever. Let them decide that for themselves when they become an adult, right? Like I said, all of your early, development and stuff like that is based off of your external social factors, right? As you get older and you become an adult, as we're seeing with the whole, Jazz, what's her name? Jazz Jennings, something like that. The I Am Jazz chick, as we're seeing with her, she's they, them, he, I'm not sure what the fuck to call him, but is starting to discover who his inner self is, the inner essence of what makes them them, right? Their inner nature, their inner, directing force, right? And essentially, your inner directing force is also kind of what is going to basically determine whether you perceive something as retrospective shame or perspective shame, or perspective joy or retrospective joy, right? And that's essentially how you start to shape your personality. And like I said, you're back to your inner essence, or your inner directing force. That is essentially your inner you. That is the traits, the characteristics, the thought process, the ideologies, the social traits, stuff like that you ended up picking up from your parents genetically, right? That is essentially who you are. Who you are ends up, of course, a lot of, like I said, it's genetic, but it also ends up being shaped by your outside, social factors, right? Social and social and emotional, I guess. That's why they do the whole social emotional learning and stuff, because that is essentially what is going to imprint on your discovery of your inner essence, right? Your discovery of your natural self, or your essential sense of self, right? So Basically, the whole reason why transgender mutilation and all this and that type of stuff when it comes to children is essentially wrong, is because children don't know who they are yet. They have not. They don't. You know, they may be able to perceive things as good or bad and stuff like that, but essentially, they don't know why they perceive things that way. That's just, it's part of their essence, and it is something that becomes revealed to you. It's not, necessarily something that you could be taught. It's not necessarily something you could be, told. It's not something that you're going to learn from, outside sources. Your essential inner essence is who you are, right? So when it comes to children, the whole banning of things like, uh, fucking, gender books, the gender queer books and shit like that in school, gender ideology in school, transgender ideology, all that type of stuff. It is essential to protect the children, right? Here's my theory on a transgender ideology, right? The whole idea of the transgender theory, right? In my opinion, it's a bit like the flat Earth theory, right? Now, the flat Earth theory, I don't believe was even actually started as an actual theory, right? So what I believe the actual fucking, here's my whole tinfoil hat conspiracy thing. What I believe the flat Earth theory essentially was started for is essentially an experiment on human gullibility, right? Take something that you essentially know to be true, even though that you're not capable of seeing it, but just based off of simple logic, the fact that you can look up at the moon, see it's, spherical, the fact that, the sun is, the way that it is, basic, and the fact that we know that, space objects are spherical, planets, things like that. We know that gravity is a real thing, that type of shit. But essentially, the idea of flat Earth theory is basically, can I convince people otherwise, right? So, the whole transgender ideological theory, shit like that, it is essentially the exact same thing. It's basically, can I, prove otherwise? Can I take something essential as, I am a male human, and can I, try to prove otherwise? Right. Okay, sorry about that. All right, back to the show. Okay, so it's essentially, taking something basic like, I am a male human being and trying to essentially convince you otherwise. All right. So like I said, it is basically a a theory or an experiment with on gullibility, and when it comes to the transgender ideology, clearly that has devastating effects such as sterilization, such as lack or loss of sexual pleasure. Pretty much, it's as we're seeing with Jazz and stuff like that. She doesn't know who the fuck she is. She doesn't know who the fuck he is, what they them are. She's confused, right? Because of the fact that she was fed all of this stuff since she was a child, right? Essentially, she they them was just being a fucking kid, and here comes their parents and stuff like that to go ahead and no, we're gonna prove to you otherwise. Like, no, you're not a little boy, you're a little girl, right? And then essentially they're gonna drill it into this kid's head because, like I said, you develop personality based off of your immediate social external factors, and essentially that is going to imprint onto your essence. All right. And it's basically, like I said, it's going to be based off of your perception of shame, right? As we're seeing, Jazz seems to be experiencing a bit of retrospective shame, to say the least, right? And ultimately, it's bad. It's bad because of the fact that this is what their parents decided to do with them, right? That's a horrible thing, right? So we're gonna go ahead and get into the next segment here, and we're going to be talking about this video of Chip Roy. All right, so Chip Roy, ideologically awesome. He's a congressman from Texas, and he says it like it is, and he speaks fluent liberty. Right, so we're going to go ahead and check out this video of Chip Roy. Basically, you know, saying what it is when it comes to the whole notion of Republicans are trying to ban books, blah 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 blah. Conservatives are over here trying to ban books. That this is the hallmarks of totalitarian government. This is the hallmarks of authoritarianism. They don't want you to read this type of stuff. We're not banning books. You could still go to whatever bookstore, Amazon, whatever, and buy this book. What we are trying to do is keep it out of schools, right? This should not be, transgender theory, gay history, all that type shit should not be core curriculum when it comes to elementary school, middle school, and stuff like that. And essentially, that is what the ongoing fight is right now. And Chip Roy basically is going to go ahead and lay it out exactly like it is. And yeah, but before we get into that, we're going to go ahead and get into this real quick. Alrighty, let's go ahead and check this out.
Other subject in my minute and a half that I have left. I've heard a lot of colleagues on the other side of the aisle talking about book bans and accusing people in Florida, particularly Governor DeSantis and the people of Duval County, Florida, saying they want to ban books. Well, let me just say this. I hope they're successful in banning a number of books. The question is, which are those books? Are those books, for example, Genderqueer, a memoir, that book, or This Book is Gay? In that book, there are all sorts of depictions with body parts and male body parts. I can't even put on the screen the stuff that is in this book, Genderqueer, where there's two men engaged in a sexual position. Another page where I can flip to where there's two men engaged in oral sex. Another picture here in which there are any number of ridiculous graphic pictures that are being put in front of our kids in schools. Now, my question for this entire panel is, do you believe that parents have a right to know whether this stuff is in their schools, in the libraries, or being pushed or promoted by teachers in their schools? I would like a yes or no answer from each member of the panel. Start with you, Ms. Neely, and work down.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes, parents have a right to know.
Parents have a right to know. Well, that's good to know.
Right? Yeah, pretty much. Finally, to get a unanimous yes out of these people, it's it's basically showing that the tables are starting to tip. Right? As I mentioned earlier, this whole transgender ideology, all this type shit, it's completely unsustainable. Obviously, it can't go on for very long. I mean, I saw an article like last week, and it was basically talking about how scientists have successfully bred two male mice together, and that now they're trying to replicate the experiment on humans. Right? Yeah, I know, pretty fucking intensely. It's a disgusting perversion of what science is. Right? It's essentially like I said, science is a good thing. Science is not bad. Science is not this whole like demon and stuff like that. The idea of science essentially at this point really has become a religion to this whole, woke cult, this whole social justice warriors, this whole, new ideology that's going on here in America. And it's basically the ideology of the idiots. It's basically the ideology of those who follow. It's the ideology of the sheep. It's basically the ideology of the people who focus way too much on social factors rather than their internal self, and rather than logic. Right? It's essentially they're an army of ideologues. Right? And obviously it can't be sustained to a degree to where basically this can be a successful way of living. Right? Obviously, when it comes to global events, transgender men probably aren't gonna, or transgender men, or fucking transgender half man half woman, whatever the fuck you want it to be. They're probably not going to be the best people to defend the country. Right? When it comes to defending the country, when it comes to keeping people safe, essentially, from external threats, shit like that. Not to sound sexist or all that shit, it takes men. It takes fucking men, and it takes not just, human male people, but it takes actual men, right? So, yeah, this whole ideology can't be sustained, and we're starting to see a lot more people, I guess, waking up to the fact that, wait a minute, this is kind of stupid, But anyway, let's go ahead and get on to another video here, and it is essentially just highlighting the I don't know, the sense of entitlement of these people, right? The fact that these people don't seem to have a basic grasp on how life works. That it's these people that basically think that you should just be able to live for free. That they think that water should just be given to everybody and shit. They think food should just be free. They think housing should be free, right? They think the basic the three basic needs, food, water, and shelter, should be the three basic rights. And that's obviously not reality, right? So let's go ahead and check out this video over here. Yeah, it's just really highlights these people's sense of entitlement.
My name is Jordan. My pronouns are she, her, and or they, them. Regarding the Place for All report, or the Congress Place for All, you haven't run my clock yet. I think it's a waste of fucking time. We all fucking know, and we've known for a long time that it's cheaper to give people a home than have a shelter-focused system.
Okay, so it's cheaper to give people a home than have a shelter-focused system. If you ask my opinion, I don't think you should really have either of them. Both of them simply promote, the idea that you don't need to work, and that other people are going to take care of you out of the kindness of their hearts, right? Well, where does kindness come from? What is kindness? What's the difference between kindness and benevolence? A lot of people don't seem to grasp that today. We're basically at the point where being virtuous has become a vice. Literally, the entire real world of morality and ethics has literally been flipped on its head, and it's like I said, it's times like this where basically there's no other alternative. Basically, this is completely unsustainable. It's a completely unsustainable way of living, and we're seeing the majority of the world, they're not with this shit. The people in Qatar or Qatar, however the fuck you pronounce it, this type of shit does not exist over there, right? Over in Russia, I don't know if they allow people to live there, transgendered and shit like that, but they definitely do not allow them to influence the public. They are still looked at as social pariahs, as they should be, right? You should not be affirming this type of behavior. You should not be affirming, this type of morality and ethics, which is literally the lack thereof, right? So, again, these people have a overwhelming sense of entitlement, and it's basically based off of the entire participation trophy era. Everyone is equal. It's basically off the idea that everyone is equal. All right. I hate to break it to you, but contrary to popular belief, not all men are created equal. Right? I know that's a bit of a rough one. That's a bit of a bold statement, but no, the true fact of the matter, not all men are created equal. My religious beliefs, I am generally more of an occultist. I prefer to think for myself. I don't really prefer like the whole idea of organized religion. I believe it's the same idea of, like I say, organized government. It's the same idea of really kind of organized society, civilization, things like that. When it comes to civilization and religion, things like that, yes, I do believe they are good. I will never ever say that one should not be religious. One should not, believe in religion. One should not follow a religion, especially if it gives you inner hope and it gives you some sort of power. More power to you. Me, I'm a natural skeptic. I have been since I was a child. I remember, being a kid and they're trying to, bring me to church, my grandparents, stuff like that. And just as a kid, it all seemed way too far-fetched for me. So I, essentially I, went ahead and did my own research and I looked into it. I mean, of course there's the general path that I kind of went down, where the general path where basically you become atheist, from atheist you or become a Satanist, that type stuff. You start looking into Satanism, because you essentially feel almost kind of betrayed by these people. When you start to realize that most of the stuff is far-fetched, because of the fact that it is it's a story, it's legends, it's mythology and stuff, right? But ultimately it does serve a purpose, right? It is basically a moral spiritual philosophy that a lot of people cannot seem to grasp for themselves, as we're seeing today, where the lack of such moral spiritual inner directing forces, basically where the lack of those come in, that's where we get these people, the woke, and so essentially my whole thought process is believe in something, whether that's whole believe in fucking science. If you want to believe in orthogenesis, I personally believe in orthogenesis. I believe in the idea of intelligent design over the idea of Darwinism, and again, it's simply because I research and look into stuff, and I constantly read books about everything from spirituality to philosophy to just basic evolution, to science, theoretical science, all that type of stuff. It's all extremely interesting to me. But either way, let's get back to this video here and go ahead and check out the entitlement.
We wasted our time for 2 fucking hours with this report, and the whole Place for All legislation is just political and bureaucratic masturbation to please bougie reactionary organizations like Rescue SF and homeless-hating shitheads like Michael Schellenberger, Michelle Tandler, Tom Wolfe, Ricky Wynn, and other Twitter trolls and armchair experts. The city needs to do what they do in Santa Clara County to address this issue, where they get vacant apartments to put formerly homeless people in, with wraparound services, of course. We can't let shelter be a permanent solution for both first-time homeless and those who weren't successful in PSH, as was discussed in the hearing yesterday. We need more fucking apartments all over the city for homeless people, not containment zones with bullshit rules run by politically connected crooked contractors like Urban Alchemy. I also think that PSH should be forced on the outer sunset near the beach, and Joel Engardio should have to take it like a big boy. I also think that these shelter-first modalities that have been discussed are also transphobic, because if I was still in shelter, I wouldn't have been able to recover from my cunt being installed last year. I need to be in my apartment for a recovery. Y'all need to sit down, shut up, the fuck up, and listen to us, and listen to every piece of prior peer-reviewed data that Housing First is better than Shelter First. This is a waste of all our fucking time. I yield my time. Fuck you.
See, like how how much emphasis they put on the curse words and stuff like that. It's obviously curse words are a I guess basically simple way of speaking. It's basically vulgarity versus proper English and stuff, and that's the whole reason. It's essentially, I guess, kind of a tell that these people are probably not the brightest crayons in the box. All right, so back to what they were saying. They were talking about housing for all and all that type of stuff, and giving people free housing is cheaper than giving people shelters. Right? I'm not sure what type of studies they were referring to, what type of logic they're referring to, anything like that. But yeah, it doesn't seem to make very much sense to me. So in my opinion, I don't, obviously being libertarian, I don't believe the government should have any sort of interference, whether positive or negative, in your in the outcome of your life. Right? I believe essentially, everybody should be born free, and I believe that life, your quality of life should be based on a meritocratic, system. Basically, best man gets the job, right? Of course, there are things like favoritism. You can't deny the fact that if somebody, if someone's your friend or something, and you're hiring somebody for a job, you're most likely going to pick them, even if you interview several other people, right? And even if other people are more qualified for the job, that's a fact of reality. But that is that basically just comes into play where you need to have some sort of social skills, right? Friends are important, right? Having connections, networking, stuff like that, it's almost just as important as making money, right? Making connections basically, building your social network of positive people, right? Don't just go start hanging out with every single person that says hi to you and stuff like that, but building your social network of positive people, especially people that are in a far more advanced or a far more advantageous place than you are, right? Those are the type of people that you should be trying to, I guess, get into your inner circle and stuff like that. Because when the shit gets tough, you kind of get surprised as to how these people could, give a hand up, right? So ultimately, when it comes to government intervention as opposed to charity, I'm always, of course, going to pick charity, but I don't think that charity should be funded by the taxpayer. I think charity should be what it sounds like. Charity. You make the decision to help somebody. You make the decision to donate money to a cause or something like that, right? That's a decision that you're made. It shouldn't be forced upon the people or anything like that. And of course, like I said, the whole name of the game, the actual goal is to breed dependency, right? It's the whole, slave and master, or, sheep and farmer, or however you prefer to put it, mentality, right? So I actually came up with a little bit of an equation as to how this works, because I've been thinking about it quite a bit lately, right? So the world of the master, or the world of the farmer, the world of the basically the person running the farm, the world of the leaders is a will to power, right? As we're seeing being played out in full display here in America right now, the world of the sheep, the livestock, the slave, right? The slave mentality, stuff like that. Of course, and Nietzsche's slave master morality, it's a little bit different. It does go a bit more on the Jew side, right? But ultimately, when it comes to this type of slave and master morality, we're seeing where it's coming to a head right now. And so basically, the world of the master is a will to power. The world of the slave is a will to attention, right? What do they seek more than power? They seek attention, because we're seeing today, based off of the slave morality, which does, according to Nietzsche, seem to lead our world. Shit, I totally forgot where I was going. I'm getting a little bit stoned now, right? Yeah, we're basically seeing, we're coming to a point where it's gonna flip, right? So right, that's right. So the world of the slave is a will to attention, right? The number one thing that the lower, I guess, people on the evolutionary intelligence scale, or the psychological evolutionary scale, those people are generally, their addiction is attention. That's what they crave more than anything, right? They just want somebody, they want to be heard. They want somebody to feel bad for them at any cost, right? Whether they have to chop off their own genitals and stuff like that, so that way people will feel bad for them later on. And, oh, you were a victim. The big pharma industry, they talked you into it and stuff. Like, no, society talked them into it. The big pharma, of course, big pharma did come in and capitalize on all this stuff. Big pharma and all these, people that provide these transgender surgeries and stuff like that, they did come in and essentially capitalize on it, which is essentially the way that capitalist system works. If somebody wants to start doing a assisted suicide and stuff like that, as they're doing in Canada, well, eventually we're going to start seeing commercials for it, and that's essentially the way that shit works. That's the way that it goes. All right. So, like I said, what the people, what they crave is attention, right? So now here's where it all ends up playing together, right? So everybody in the world is willing to offer their 2 cents, right? Because they want somebody to listen to them. They want attention. All right. If you go around and you pick up all these 2 cents that people are trying to offer you, eventually you become rich in knowledge, right? It's a little proverbial, moral that I seem to live by. It's a little proverbial philosophy that I seem to live by, right? I like to listen to what everybody's got to say, even if it's complete bullshit, even if it's completely fucking stupid. I still listen to them just because I like to analyze why they think that, But either way, if you pay attention to what people are saying, you will eventually, become rich in knowledge, right? So the farmer pays attention to the livestock, right? And in turn, the farmer is able to gain power from production of the livestock, basically, from the workers, right? And we could break it down to the bourgeoisie and the proletariat and all that stuff too, right? So it's essentially the two sides, the two factions, right? And so essentially the master pays attention to the slave. The slave in turn works and provides power to the master. The master learns from paying attention to the slave, right? And that's the whole little equation, right? That's the way that society continues to go, right? The more the master pays attention to the slave, by paying attention, I mean, basically providing opportunity, growing the farm, making things better, essentially not providing a better life, but providing better opportunity, right? That's the way that the whole slave master morality kind of works, right? I totally forgot what even got me onto this topic in the first place, but either way, let's go ahead and get on to the last one, right? And that is going to be universal school choice is headed to Ron DeSantis's desk after passing the Florida Senate. Right. So if you guys, watch my show, stuff like that, if you guys have been here for a while, you guys will know that I am a big proponent of school choice. Right. Essentially, the whole thing with school choice is basically, rather than your tax dollars going to the school that is within your local district, you can choose to, take those tax dollars that would be, being spent on your child or pupil, and rather than it going to that school, you can take that money and put your kid in whatever school you choose, right? Hence the name school choice. So obviously this, based on the idea of free markets, this is going to, this is basically how free markets kind of fix things, right? So when it comes to education should be on a free market system as well, right? So essentially, parents need to be more active in their child's learning, right? They should be at these schools. They should be part of the parent-teacher meetings, all that stuff, because obviously it matters, right? They're trying to indoctrinate your children into a certain, ideological system based off of social and emotional learning. It's essentially, it started with the whole Frankfurt School of Indoctrination and stuff like that, and this is based off of the public schools. That's all based off of social and emotional learning, which is part of the Frankfurt School of Education, aka indoctrination. And it is basically, they're part of the whole Fabian Socialist Society, where basically they're trying to move society to a more socialized or socialist global reality by a series of soft, slow nudges, right? And it's been quite successful, clearly, right? So the way that they do that, as I mentioned earlier, is they go after your kids, because your kids are the ones that are going to inherit this world, and essentially, that's the target that you go after. Also, as I mentioned earlier, kids soak up information through social and emotional means, right? They soak up information based off of external factors of their social environment. So essentially, when it comes to the whole nature over nurture argument, a lot of it, who you become, your reaction to what is good, what is bad, your sense of shame, whether it's prospective or retrospective, it's all based off of your inner nature, right? When it comes to your development of your personality is basically your adaptations of external, factors based. You learn to start acting like the people that you like, the things that you see, what's popular. Essentially, you get a herd mentality to develop your personality, right? And eventually you develop or you discover your inner essence based off of your reaction to these external social factors and stuff like that, right? Be good for parents. Option to fund private schools. Private schools have better standards. Yes, private schools have much better standards, and the reason for that is because they need to be done on a competitive basis, right? If this school is not the most top performing school, if these teachers are not the best teachers for the job, then why are you going to send your kid there, right? That is the whole basically, the way that things move is through competition, right? The way that basically the way that nature grows, the way that evolution grows, the way that everything in this world functions and grows is through competition, right? So why wouldn't markets be the same way, right? So when it comes to schools, obviously when it's on a competitive market, they're going to obviously the better education system, the better education curriculum is going to end up getting the most money. Because they're going to produce better results, right? So that's the whole purpose of school choice. And basically, in my opinion, like I said, I've said in previous videos, I would be totally for doing away with the idea of public school altogether, even if that means that all parents are going to have to pay for their kids to go to school, because of course, with the school choice and stuff like that, the vouchers that they'll generally give you is generally below the average cost of private school, right? Of course, you can get into a certain you can get your kid into certain private schools based off of the monies that they do. Right, I don't want to say give you, right? It's taxpayer money, and essentially it is what was going to go to these underperforming public schools, right? So the whole fight right now between the Democrats and Republicans when it comes to school choice is, like I said, the more liberty-leaning free market people, the smaller government people, don't they want school choice, right? The Democrat people think that the answer to basically better educating your children is giving the teachers more money, right? They of course that's their answer for everything. It's more money, right? So essentially it's the whole left-wing idea of how the world should be, how to make the world a happy place, how to make the world a better place, is abundance for all, right? They think abundance for all is going to make the world a better place, right? So basically, if everybody just has everything, then what's there to want for, right? But at the same time, you need to want. Otherwise, your want drives your will, and your will is basically how things get done, right? Human will is literally what has built skyscrapers. It's what has built these monuments of humanity. And when you don't have a need, when you don't have a want, there is no need for a will. So essentially, you won't do anything. So that is the whole purpose of competition and basically free markets. It's what drives growth. It's what builds abundance, right? They think the whole left-wing communist idea is basically that everybody should just be given a certain amount and stuff like that, and basically off of our universal, I guess, sense of kindness, that we would be motivated to be productive, to initiate growth, to provide abundance based off of simple kindness and love thy neighbor and all that type stuff. It's basically based off of Christian morals and virtues and stuff like that. That is essentially what they're playing on. They're playing on the whole, like I say, the slave morality. Like I say, if you know Nietzsche, the slave morality, they're playing off of that. And basically, slave morality is tolerance, being kind to one another. It's basically kindness in place of benevolence. All right, so benevolence is essentially what is good for a person rather than what is kind, for people. So essentially, they think you could just provide abundance, and people are going to produce this abundance based off of the kindness of their hearts. Kindness is not a natural human emotion. Kindness, as opposed to what the left is trying to say right now with gender ideology, kindness is actually a social construct. Gender is obviously a natural biological construct, but no, things like kindness, tolerance, being good toward one another, that's social construct. That's not a natural human trait. We're not naturally nice. That's something that basically you learn from society, right? And that, like I say, their whole thing is they believe that you should be able to provide abundance based off of people wanting to be nice, right? So the right-wing ideology on how to provide happiness and make this world a better place, rather than providing abundance, they know the the next step involved. They're aware that you cannot just provide abundance. The only way to provide abundance is by providing opportunity, right? They seek abundance of stuff. They seek abundance of wealth. They seek abundance of just abundance in general, right? We seek abundance of opportunity. And that is the major difference. That is what the difference that drives the left and the right, right? They are focused on social personality aspects, right? They basically have an imbalance of personality that they have not figured out how to, based off of the use of shame, trickle down into their inner essence. They essentially ignore their conscience and go off of what the herd is telling them, right? Basically, a lot of the reason for this is because we are at a point where humanity has never been so connected before. And even right now, I'm sitting in my kitchen talking to you guys, sharing these ideas and stuff like that. And it's basically, that's what is leading to this herd mentality, this essentially woke mentality, which is basically the liberal fucking hive-minded train of thought, right? So, all right, man. I appreciate you. A couple guys stopping by. We got 4 views. That's a big deal, all right? For my first live stream, man. So, yep, that's about it. I'm gonna be dropping in every now and then. I'll definitely put up a notification a little bit beforehand, just so that way you guys know I'm gonna be going live. I don't know, maybe I'll start doing some headline reads in the mornings when I wake up and get ready for work, stuff like that. Wake up, smoke a bowl with you guys, and read the local, the latest news. But anyway, we're about to get up out of here, so we'll see you guys later. Smoke up. All right. Appreciate you guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share this channel out. Fuck off.